it suck less, please. For anyone paying attention on January 6, 2021, such banging on the doors of Congress may seem eerily familiar. Except not really. Unlike the deranged followers of Tangerine Palpatine, the 1781 mutineers had no intention of actually harming any members of Congress. So, a horse shits in a house. The mutineers raided supplies for their journey, including horses. Tempe Wick, age 22, lived in Jockey Hollow, New Jersey. Her father, recently deceased, she cared for her sick mother and mentally ill brother. Her mother's health took a downward turn, and Tempe rode Colonel to fetch the doctor. Along the way, 3 mutineers intercepted her and said, "Give us that fucking horse." She said, "Okay," asking the soldiers holding Colonel's bridle to help her dismount. Chivalry not being dead, he said, "Sure." And the moment he let go of the bridle, she said, "Psych," and kicked Colonel into a gallop. The soldiers knew where she lived, so putting Colonel in the barn wouldn't suffice. She led the equine upstairs and had him stand on a feather mattress to muffle his hooves, hiding him there for 3 weeks. 3 weeks? That's a whole mess of horseshit. Fortunately, the soldiers never thought to search the second floor, and she got to keep the family quadruped. And the mutineers? The British said, "Hey, come fight for us, we'll pay you." They said, "We're mutineers, not traitors, so get fornicated." Then the Pennsylvania government cut a deal with the mutineers in mid-January that brought an end to the crisis. Inspired by this, the New Jersey line mutinied days later, and Washington said, "Not this bullshit again," and crushed the mutiny by force. January 2nd, 1492. A lot of crazy shit happened in Spain in 1492. The Crown financed Columbus raping a continent. They kicked out the Jews, and they also finally kicked out the Muslims. I say finally because they had been fighting since the Muslims invaded the region over 7 centuries earlier. The Spanish victory was deemed a reconquering of their own territory. That's why they called it the Reconquista. By 711, a mere century after it had begun, Islam had spread across North Africa and crossed the Strait of Gibraltar to invade the Iberian Peninsula. How did it spread so far, so fast? The same way many religions spread. Not through peaceful explanation of the revelations of the prophet, but by the sword. Convert or die. At the time of the Muslim conquest, the region that would come to be known as Spain and Portugal was a divided Visigoth kingdom that could not mount a unified defense against Muslim invaders. And over the next 15 years, the invaders conquered most of the peninsula, with the exception of the northwest corner. And it was from that corner the Reconquista launched. Pretty much right away, but wow, was it slow going. Almost 8 motherfucking centuries of fighting to take back the territory, which of course involved the forcible conversion of Muslims and Jews to Christianity. On January 2nd, 1492, the Emirate of Granada in the southeast of Spain, the final Muslim stronghold on the peninsula, surrendered to the Christian forces. The interesting thing is that during the Islamic occupation of Spain, the invaders had been pretty tolerant of other religions, and many Christians and Jews and Muslims lived side by side, mostly in peace. Muslims had little tolerance for polytheists because one God, but since Jews and Christians are monotheists, mostly, you could keep those faiths if you were willing to pay extra taxes for the privilege. But as the reconquest moved south, the tolerance for anything not Christian was paltry, and this included Jews. A few months after the surrender at Granada, there was a decree that any Jews remaining in the country had to convert to Christianity or get the fuck out. And many did convert, but others refused. Approximately 100,000 Jews were expelled, and thousands died during their flight. They say no one expects the Spanish Inquisition, but they kind of telegraphed that shit. January 3rd, 1868. The focus of this story takes place a decade previous, but I must begin by saying that the end of the shogunate in Japan deserved a better Hollywood telling than Tom Cruise as a white savior for a lost cause in The Last Samurai. Watching that movie, I kind of wanted the samurai to lose. And lose they did, because they brought knives to a gunfight. They were really big and very sharp knives, but the guys fighting for the Meiji Empire had rapid-firing rifles.